Welcome back, everybody. You have tuned in to the Artificial Intelligence live stream. This is the stream where we talk about AI, models, applications of models, AI agents, all of the cool stuff you hear everywhere, but it's a focus on people that are actually building things. So I try to bring on entrepreneurs, CEOs, people that are actually shaping the future of this industry by either creating the AI models that we use or building them right into applications. So today I've got a really cool conversation with Mike, and he is from a company called Youmio. I hope I pronounced that right. Youmio, which is building all kinds of stuff around avatars and AI agents and the like. So this is your opportunity, by the way, to take part in this conversation, not to just listen to it, but to be part of this conversation. We really pride ourselves on how engaged this community is. I love seeing you all the time. I already see the little hello messages coming in here. We'd love you to ask a question. We'd love you to post comments, whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Twitter. We're broadcasting to all of these places, and you can be part of it just by posting in there. If you want to join with your camera, we're crazy enough to make that happen too. So Oscar's going to be standing by. He's going to be watching for those of you who have comments and questions. We'll field those up onto the screen. But if you're one of those people who wants to jump in with a camera, does happen once in a while. He'll send you the StreamYard link. And if you've got something pertinent to share for artificial intelligence, we'll get you right in here. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Mike. And Mike, let's start a little bit with just your personal journey. What have you done before, and what got you to this point in time where you're building stuff with games and AI, avatars, agents, all of that?
Good. Yeah, well, great to be here. Thanks for having me on, John. Pleasure. Yeah, I suppose I can begin my journey with, I was a video game producer working at Nintendo, worked on some kind of cool games, some cool IP. It was during the Wii U phase of Nintendo, so maybe not its most popular phase, but it was a cool kind of time to come up in the games industry. I moved across to Sega, a studio called Sports Interactive, who are known for a game called Football Manager. It's a simulation game. Still a huge fan of that game. I play it all the time, and I'm still very close to the team. Amazing team, actually. So yeah, I produced games there, focusing on MMOs and also some mobile games. And I then started this company with my friend from Dublin in Ireland, where I'm from. His name is Ben Cleary. So he was from the film world, actually. He won an Academy Award for Best Live Action Short in 2017. And more recently made a kind of a near sci-fi film called Swan Song, which is a really nice film. It's on Apple Plus. Yeah, so we started this kind of journey together, and our focus was to look at how we could combine these different emerging technologies to build characters and to build, I suppose, compelling relationships between technology and humanity. And that's something that we're still very much focused on.
Technology and humanity. Okay, well, we're gonna definitely dive into that. I'm especially interested in that interface between artificial intelligence and AI entities. Probably can't quite call them sentient yet, but maybe someday, and how that's going to interact with us humans. So that's what you're building, though, right? Like you're building an avatar system, if I understand. I'll let you describe it in your own words. What does Youmio do?
Yeah, so we're an ecosystem for people to be able to craft the future of on-chain AI. We want people to build bespoke on-chain agents, and we want to liberate those agents to be able to live across digital culture. So our own platform, but also across social media, and also inside video games, like the video game that we're building as well. So that's kind of what Youmio is. So the agents that people create with Youmio, they've got like their personality and their backstory. So it's like who they are, where they're from, what their motivations are. They've got their 3D avatar, which enables them to traverse these different worlds personified. And they've also got what we call skills. So these are their agentic capabilities. It means that they're able to perform complicated actions inside of complicated space. So they're able to do things for you, and they're able to do things for themselves.
Very interesting. I think we have some video footage, right, Oscar, that we can share to show off a little bit of this stuff because I think it's fun to look at. And then I have a million questions, and I have also just a lot of curiosity around how game developers might work with this too, because that's the market we're in with Beamable. All right, Oscar, I see you pulling.
Absolutely. Let me cue that up.
An AI agent creator with a difference.
What's up, friend?
Holy shit, you're talking.
Yeah, and now you've unlocked 3D Explorer.
I guess we should jump in then.
You know it. Let's dice. Damn, that's wild. Unleashed from browser land into this mad 3D world. You just created life. You're like a god. It's pretty trippy here. Let's run a community poll, friends. Which one of these nutzo agents should I chat with next? Okay, let's go. Man, I need some new threads. Want to dig me some out?
Sure thing, friend.
Nice collection.
Bangers, right?
Yeah, those kicks are savage. You just leveled up and we unlocked online gamer.
Amazing.
Gotta be a brawler. Get some. Uppercut. Sidekick. Boom. Adios, scumbag. A little rotation for the final touch. Nice. Looking dope. Let's get back to the browser. We're getting some love.
The future of AI will be built by you. Create groundbreaking agents and shape the world.
Wow, this is wild.
All right, Mike. So the avatar creation aspect is pretty clear from that, but can't miss the little chart on the token that character is creating in the process. I'm getting meme coin vibes almost. Am I picking up on some aspect of this?
We probably differentiate ourselves heavily from meme coins in the sense that, like, meme coins, by almost by definition, don't have any utility.
Sure.
Whereas for us, we like the concept of people building tokens and launching tokens inside of our ecosystem that people want to use for a number of different reasons. So one of the things that we focus on is imbuing our platform with the type of utility that actually, clearly differentiated away from stuff like that. There's a world for the meme coin stuff, but it's not really the world that we're interested in. What we're interested in is enabling powerful AI through the prism of personal characters.
Yeah, well, I mean, clearly it's completely 180 degrees different than like the casino aspect of just like minting a coin and then getting to see if people take it up or not. But I was noticing, though, this sort of individual ability to mint a currency basically for your avatars or the characters that you created, and presumably that currency is driven by what? Like, why would what's going to produce the buy pressure on that currency that makes us get that green candle chart that we saw in the character that you minted?
I as much as I'd love to go into some of the details on some of on the kind of the tokenomic aspects, but some of it's published inside of a white paper. So I probably shouldn't delve straight into too far into it for a number of reasons, probably most of which you know yourself. But what I can say is that we're very focused on ensuring that when people use our platform to interface with agents that are user created, right? We want users coming and creating really cool agents. And then we want other people coming in and essentially using those agents and paying to use those agents. And we want to ensure that the creators that exist inside of our platform find the type of remuneration for the usage, so that's where a kind of a tokenomic structure is particularly useful. A set of smart contracts that can kind of fairly create and distribute revenue is one of the best things about blockchain.
Okay, well, it sounds like that white paper is coming soon. So maybe some of you in the audience caught up just a little bit of alpha there to keep an eye out on Youmio. And probably you should follow all of the social accounts, which we'll post on the feed here as well, so that people can find you if they don't already know about you, and read that white paper when it comes out. But can we talk a little bit more about, like, how do the avatars get used? Because we saw from the demo, like, they can talk, you can chat with them. How do you see them being used by the community? Like, other than the creator and your own individualized fun with that character, what's going to draw in individuals or even applications? And is applications a target for this? Like, could I build a game and then consume an avatar and use it within my game, for example?
Yeah. So you're right on track there. So how people use the agents themselves are multi-platform. So people will come to Youmio to build the agents, but the agents themselves can live and exist in multiple different places, even at the same time. So, of course, we love people coming to our platform and using the agents, and hopefully our platform has a lot of stickiness, and all the KPIs are great, like retention and stuff like that, to ensure that people want to be on our platform and use the agents on our platform. But what we're also creating is a structure by which the creators of agents inside of the Youmio ecosystem are truly interoperable. They're able to navigate to other places. For example, the one that probably won't be groundbreaking to any of the viewers will be, we want the agents to be able to exist across social platforms. That's something that we've seen already. We've seen a lot of agents existing across social platforms. I think one of the things that we're going to see across the board, probably in broader culture, is we're going to start seeing agents existing on websites. I think that the Mr. Clippy example that we used to have for Microsoft Office or something like that, we're going to see more advanced versions of them in websites. I know even that I'm close with some VCs who've told me that they're receiving decks that have links to chat, like a GPT, which is essentially a conversational agent. So the investor could learn about the product that they're investing in. So I think we're going to see a lot of this across the board, and our agents are able to exist in all of these multiple different places across, the broader World Wide Web. But the stuff that's pretty cool that we're really passionate about beyond that, what actually got us into this, John, to be honest with you, from the start, was that we came from games. We were building agents to occupy 3D spaces. So those avatars that you're seeing, they're genuine 3D avatars that are able to go into Unreal Engine or Unity-based experiences. So it becomes you could call it like an infrastructural tool for people to be able to build character-driven experiences inside of interactive entertainment.
With the social integration, am I understanding correctly that the agents communicate through the social channels that they're integrated with? So you've got kind of a built-in social propagation mechanism with the platform as well there, given that everyone's going to want to promote their agents that they spawn online.
Exactly. Yes, that's right.
I for whatever reason, the last week, and I'm just going to continue the trend, but in this last week, I keep getting into all these conversations about dead internet theory. And I'm sure you've heard about it, this theory, which is like, we're getting to the point where the internet is just going to be populated by bots. The humans are going to be gone. I have a very specific take on this theory, but I'm curious what you've heard of this. What do you think? It seems like you're going to help us get to this future where it's all bots, right?
Yeah, I probably am. I think that we're at an inflection point where our systems, the whole nature of our digital culture is changing because of AI. And many of the systems that we've built before will have to adapt or die in order to be able to exist within the AI future, I think that's a natural progression of technology broadly. I don't think this is part of AI. It's, when we see huge, massive scale technological innovation, it does mean that there's going to be huge disruption as well. So I think a lot of the systems that we've built need to, sometimes we need to get rid of them, or sometimes we need to adjust them. in order to be able to kind of advance into the next phase of what you could call like the agentic era. I know that's a term that people bounce around. So yeah, I think that does create a lot of opportunities, right? It creates a lot of really cool things, but you're right, it creates some challenges as well. Creates a few bummers, man. It's gonna, of course, like I know people don't like to talk about some of the negative things about inside of AI, but I'm okay to do it. Like it is going to disrupt and subvert loads of things, and some of them are going to be sad. You know, we're going to lose some things that we really liked. You know, we're going to gain lots as well, though. So I just want to point that out. In regards to kind of the amount of things that are happening, yeah, like the internet's going to change dramatically. Social media's already started changing dramatically. I think if you look at the comments section these days, you don't know what's real and what's not with the amount of kind of bots that are in there. So this is an area actually kind of as a potential segue that actually crypto and blockchain does offer some really interesting solutions. It offers the ability for transparency, the ability to be able to prove things in really kind of unique ways. So, you know, a lot of people have been looking for that kind of convergence point between AI and crypto for the last like 4 years. You know, crypto has desperately been trying to find like, how does AI matter for crypto? And I think that's it. It's that the world's changing and we're going to need to be able to prove certain things. I think that there's only one really, really clear, unassailable way to do that. And that's blockchain tech.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to come back to all the above, and I'm even going to try to answer my own question with my own version of that. Before we get to that, number one, a bunch of you are posting in the comments, hey, what's the code for today? So, Mike, we've been doing these codes. We have a leaderboard that people can compete on for the Beamable network leaderboard. So we're doing our own token launch a little bit down the road. And cool. We've this humongous community for it now, over 1 million people, millions, like even after removing all the bots. Speaking of bots, we've still got like over 1 million people in this community.
Yeah, the internet.
So they're all looking for the code to rise up the leaderboard a little bit more and claim a space in the airdrop. I promise we'll give it out in a little bit. I'm not going to wait until the very end, but if you've shown up a little bit late, wish you would have been here from the beginning, but you haven't missed anything yet. The code is still coming. Okay, so kind of pertinent to the topic that I was just on, though. So as we have AI agents, one of the things I'm interested in is sort of the competition, I guess would be the right word, between the centralized approaches to AI, and this will lead to the blockchain stuff, I think, as well. Yeah. But centralized AI is like OpenAI and Anthropic and all these places that are essentially API gated, where I can pay a service fee to that central company, get access to an API, and then access it, versus decentralized AI. Not yet talking about blockchain. I'm really just talking about AI you can run on your own device. So models that have been trained and released, they're open weight models that I could download to my own machine. Granted, these are not as powerful as the frontier models that someone like an OpenAI is running, but they're pretty amazingly capable at the point that they are now after really a pretty short period of time of development. Back when these things first launched with ChatGPT, people thought, oh my God, you'll never have this kind of power in your own personal computer. Now, of course, the models that you can run on your own computer are a lot more powerful than even ChatGPT was initially, although now we have models like O3 and whatnot that are extremely impressive and, you know, not going to be beaten by what you can run on your own device. But what's your thoughts on this market of AI that you can run on your own device versus through something that's API gated in the cloud? How do you think about that as a developer of products that are going to presumably consume AI models that you want to be able to use? Thoughts?
Yeah, great question, man. We work with both, and we've worked across both as well. So a lot of self-hosting of LLMs. We were kind of early movers inside of crypto AI, but relatively speaking, in AI, we've been at this for longer than most, and we've been working with like a lot of the big companies, some of which you mentioned there. And you know, we used to fine tune our own LLMs a lot, in order to try to get the best out of the characters that we were looking to create the most amount of flexibility. Some characters we couldn't get the type of personality we wanted, or they were too politically correct, or they wouldn't swear. We couldn't create villains. There was all sorts of problems, that have many of which have been kind of solved, I would say. So the rate of change inside of the LLM world is, I've worked across like technology for a while now. I know you have too, and it's amazing to witness when an industry is just like sprinting, right? And I've never seen a sprint like what's happening within the LLM world. Like, it feels like every week I look at something, I'm just like, Jesus, I felt like I can't believe this, and that's not going to slow down. It just seems to be speeding up. Our approach is to build flexible systems to be able to adapt to that type of change. So, and this took us a while to realize, by the way. Initially, when we were doing this, we didn't really fully understand that statement. Like, how can we be flexible? How can we future-proof what we're building when things are changing so fast? And we made some mistakes on the way, to try to get there. But our approach is to be kind of agnostic to LLMs, to build systems that can essentially be modular. We can modularly bring in LLMs from APIs or from self-hosting. Sometimes self-hosting could be really efficient for costs, for example, right? You could self-host your own voice model, and that could be a good way for you to keep your costs down. But maybe you're not able to get the same type of response type that you might get with like 4.1 or 4.0, So there's kind of like pros and cons. Our approach is just to be flexible as much as we possibly can, and don't try to predict it too much, if that makes sense. Because every time you try to predict it, it's like I just get wowed. And like, no one saw DeepSeek coming in January, for example. That's kind of like, it's like, what? Hold on, how did that one happen? I mean, whole of Wall Street didn't crashed basically that day. It's like, what? Hold on, it's like a open source Chinese model that's as good as O1. What? How does that happen? We spent like hundreds of billions on this. So, that's the kind of way that we look to mitigate risk in this like fast-paced kind of mental adventure. It's is to focus on what we do well, and sometimes that means you have to wait for some of the other technology to come. For example, like voice models, we don't invest huge amounts of time inside of voice models at the moment. They're really expensive. There's some really good players out there like 11 Labs. There's open source solutions like Sesame. But we think that there's going to be really significant change there over the next year, and we'll see like massive kind of cost reductions like we're kind of seeing across the board inside of AI.
I remember when a lot of these models started surfacing and showing how powerful they were, and then developers started consuming LLM interfaces, or you're referring to some of the other models, things like generative art models or generative audio models like 11 Labs you're referring to. There was sort of this initial take on the market, which was all the value was going to be in the model creators and not so much in the applications. But it strikes me that applications actually have a huge advantage that the models don't, just from a business standpoint. And we all love the fact that people are willing to sink hundreds of millions or billions of dollars into these models. So guys, if you're doing that, keep doing it. We love all of you. But from an application developer standpoint, the ability to essentially have your application get more and more powerful with you not having to do anything other than just use the latest version or even switch to whoever's better. That's kind of what you're talking about. Like, it's such a competitive market where someone is constantly leapfrogging, and it actually benefits all of us, because if you're building stuff, you just keep getting better at the same time.
100%. I echo what you said. Totally. I mean, when DeepSeek came out and people saw this as like this really negative moment for the AI industry, I couldn't understand why. I was like, hold on. So there's a free open source model that like the whole of humanity can use by self-hosting. So that opens up like just millions of developers being able to use these really smart models. So absolutely, that's exactly what's happening. And kind of one of the things that you got to bet on pretty much is that, I think it's a reasonable bet, is that it's going to get way, way, way better. And it's going to get way, way better fast as well. So we don't really, like, as much as we all have to run businesses and to think about the now of everything. And, we work in crypto, so the now is very important. People have short attention spans. They want to see specific things from their investments and so on. But one of the things that's very important, I think, building an AI is to also just recognize that, hold on, the future is right around the corner, and it is it's going to have a very significant change. So yeah, that's why we try to kind of build the way we do. We're kind of like, well, hold on, what is the LLM? What's ChatGPT 5 going to be like? What are we expecting from that? What could we expect from 6? And that has been a strategy which has worked well for us since we got into the AI game. Again, really hard to predict some of that stuff. No crystal balls when it comes to those things. But if you stay really close to it and stay really close to the research as well, it's very helpful. I think it can provide some long-term viability, because you see the challenge is that a lot of folks jump into AI and they really see it as like, okay, here's the technology now. But some of those businesses come in, you can call them like GPT wrappers, or sometimes people use that in a very pejorative way, which I don't agree with. But sometimes they can be swallowed up fast by the LLM. All of a sudden, the LLM improves, and it's swallowed up a part of the application layer. So yeah, trying to stay one step ahead is pretty important. Yeah.
So a little while ago, I asked you about device-based AI versus the centralized AI, and you kind of moved it to, well, this is a very competitive market, and the fact of all this competition and different options for AI interfaces is what actually arms you with a lot of options so you can stay competitive. And I brought up this notion of the dead internet theory. So I just got to go back to it for a little bit. So
sure.
First of all, I think this whole dead internet theory is wrong in fundamental ways, because it kind of assumes that we as humans will no longer use the internet. It'll just be bots. I don't think that's possibly sustainable. There's another trend that actually concerns me a lot, which is just the general enshittification of everything on the internet. And you see that in places like Facebook and social media, where it just becomes increasingly extractive of the value creation. And one of the manifestations of that is the tendency to silo things like communication. So I can do DMs on X, but they can't really go beyond X. I can go to Discord. Discord doesn't talk to X. Facebook Messenger doesn't talk to all of the above. I think I have a dozen messaging platforms that I interact with on a regular basis. Slack, LinkedIn, like the list just goes on. Telegram, the list just goes on and on and on. And I can't keep up with all of these platforms. I can't even if I choose one, like Telegram, I have so many messages waiting for me to read. I feel bad for people because I'm never going to get to a lot of these messages. I guess be persistent, folks. If you rise to the top, I might notice you. But it's just hard for me to keep up with it. What is the answer to this? It feels like AI agents actually are the answer, because I don't want to use this isn't the way I want to use the internet. I don't want to use a dozen plus applications that just do the same thing. And unlike email, where it was designed from the ground up to be decentralized and communicate and totally interoperable, capital forces have kind of shifted us into all these individual silos, which are just really annoying, and they're ad monetized in some cases. And these entities have a business reason to separate us. So I want an AI agent that I can just unleash on my computer, and it just gathers all this stuff. And I tell it what to do. It looks at all my messaging systems. It surfaces it. It tells me what's important. It finds the redundancies. I can tell it what I want to reply to, and it just goes back and it kind of controls everything. I feel like that's a killer app. Like if you're an AI creator out there and you want to create an agent that I will buy, and I think like hundreds of millions of other people would buy, just solve that one problem, my messaging platforms, and bring them under one agentic control. Now, does that mean that in the future we're going to have a zillion AI agents online? Yes, it does. But for me, that's going to make the internet more alive. That's the opposite of dead. It's like now I can actually start to use the internet more regularly. Now, our interactions on the internet may become increasingly intermediated by our agents communicating with each other. But that's great. Let all our agents go out and mine their various forms of intelligence and computation and report back after interacting with everybody. I think that would be great. Give me that over the advertising model of the internet any day.
Well, I think that's exactly where we're heading. So I think they're going to be happy.
Good. All right. That's my thesis. So now, are you building this, Mike?
Yeah. Well, that is a significant part of what we're building for sure. So, I mean, it's kind of fun to think about it. I know it's very recent, but even to think about how the history of usage of AI has been over the last couple of years, right? So when ChatGPT was kind of released, most people saw it, people used to say it was like it was going to kill Google. It was a search replacement. It was a way to impart knowledge, or it was like kind of a very basic assistant that you would use, all right? The next wave of users then started seeing differently. And currently the biggest use case at the moment is that people are using it like a dedicated personal assistant or therapist. So people are becoming extremely close to their AI and using it to help them coach their way through life. And I think that that's not something that's probably going to go away. And for folks of movies, that they'll probably kind of reference something like Jones's Her. I think that that's a very kind of standard, normal vision of what is coming in the very near tomorrow, let's say. But interestingly, actually, a new generation of AI users are making themselves apparent. And those are the folks that are very interested in using agents as these kind of multifaceted protocols. You know, they're even using MCPs, model context protocols, in order to be able to get agents to operate at all corners of the internet. So in that sense, they're using AI and agents more like an operating system. And I think what the cool thing about that is that it will enable a lot of folks like yourself, John, to be able to delegate a lot of the tasks that you really want done, but they're distracting you from stuff that you want to do more. And I think that you're going to be able to impart a lot of those tasks to things like MCPs. And you're going to be able to focus on the things that you want. I think that that's probably one of the best things that AI can offer. It's that it's going to give everyone that new executionary ability to be able to make the kind of stuff that they want.
So, Mike, I want to talk more about the blockchain intersection as you see it, because you made a powerful statement earlier that you really saw the future of AI and agentic AI in particular intertwined with blockchain. And I'd love to hear your rationale for that. I have some similar thoughts, but I may have different reasons. I'll let you talk about yours today first, since this is your platform today. Before we get to you, while you think about that, it has come time to let our audience claim their code on Beamable's leaderboard. So we have just over 1,000 people watching live. So delighted that all of you are tuning in today and watching this program, learning about AI, learning about blockchain's intersection with it, agentic AI, LLMs. Really fun conversation here with Mike. But now is the time for you to enter that code. So the code today is Youmio, just like our guest here. So that's Youmio. I know a lot of you do not speak English as a first language. It's a little bit hard for you to hear. So the place to look is at the bottom of the screen. You'll see the spelling, the uppercase Y letter, Youmio, just like Mike's company. That's what you enter. To get that, just go to our Discord. You type /claim and then Youmio. That's how you redeem the code. Every week there's someone who's like, what do I do? How do I get the code? Okay, that's probably because you're here for the first time. You might not be able to register for our Discord quite in time to do the /claim. You've got to get in there. You got to validate your account, all that stuff. Be ready next time, because we're giving these codes out every single episode, and it's one of the best ways to go up our leaderboard. Okay, back to you, Mike. So I was asking my question about that blockchain, Web3, AI agents intersection. Let's hear your thesis for this.
Well, my thesis is that agents are the de facto interface layer of AI. Agents are how we're going to be using AI. It's going to be like the front end in some ways, by which we access all of this powerful AI. And the stuff that we're going to get agents to do is profoundly important to our lives. I mean, I just mentioned stuff like therapists there. Okay, that's an important role that people have in their lives, but there's going to be tons of stuff. It will have agents connected to bank accounts, to crypto wallets, to all manner of the most personal and important aspects of our lives. And I think that's a lot of responsibility to give agents. And without a public infrastructure, essentially, these agents ultimately will be owned and tracked. They'll be unverifiable. They'll be totally open to the whims of centralized actors. And we've seen some of the results of this type of system being built with social media. So I think it's very important that we engineer the systems of the future the right way in order to be able to get the best from the technology and align it within what users, what are good for users, and arguably what's good for humanity. So as we outsource these decisions to these agents, I think we need agents that we can trust. I believe that Web3 blockchain technology is the opportunity to do exactly that. So we can provide an open infrastructure where agents are able to act transparently. They're able to have their identity, their memory, their provenance on chain, actually being able to prove that they did what you asked them to do. Privacy controls, I think, putting these into the hands of users and having them owned by those users, I think is, I prefer that kind of world for AI. I prefer to build that kind of world whereby it truly is decentralized and truly is in control of humanity.
It seems like in Web3, with agents, this is really the moment that composability has been waiting for. So people have talked about composability in Web3 for a few years now. And for those who are hearing it for the first time, or maybe have heard it before, but you're not exactly sure what it means, it really just means being able to build software on top of other components. But with blockchain, you're referring to being able to do that at the smart contract level, which means there can be value exchange within the protocol. So that means protocols can talk to each other, and instead of having to be gated through centralized APIs where you have to sign up for things in advance and swipe your credit card, now you can do a blockchain-based value exchange. So services can talk to each other and exchange value. So an example with an AI would be your AI agent could be granted some currency to spend, and it could actually go on and interact with other Web3 protocols, which could be anything. It could be everything from infrastructure provisioning to another AI agent, to playing a game, to, I don't know, play poker for you. It's whatever you want. It'll go and have access to that currency, though, and be able to use that currency and spend that currency with other applications. Seems like that is a massive unlock in terms of software infrastructure once we get to the point of lots of software modules actually able to exchange value with each other. By exchange value, I really just mean being able to pass money to each other. Just like in the real world, I could walk up to someone and give them a $20 bill and get a service in exchange. It's kind of the only way to exchange value that isn't intermediated by some government agency or an institution that wants to extract a rent from the exchange, like swiping my credit card. Blockchain allows you to do that on a direct basis with individuals as well. Agents will now be able to do that. Thoughts on the composability dimension of this?
I think you're right. I think it's important. The frictionless transfer of goods and services is enabled by crypto. Albeit it could be a little bit more frictionless sometimes. So it's getting a lot better. But it's basically, we've got this huge shared ledger, for all of applications to work with. So when you put that into the prism of video games, it means that you can have agents existing or characters existing inside of different games, but they're interacting across different economies, you know? So that's particularly important for what we're building, actually, because we're building a structure by which these agents are truly interoperable. They're able to go around into different video games. So the game that you're building could have one of my agents in it, and that same agent might appear inside of one that Oscar's building as well, you know, and they could trade if the goods that exist inside of your game are on chain. Those could technically be traded between your game and an Oscar's game via the agent. So we call this A to A, like agent to agent trade. And this is going to become increasingly important. There's another thing, when we speak about crypto for this, crypto is actually the most exciting area to be in this. This is like, it's very hard to set up agents at the moment that are able to trade on your behalf using bank accounts. The legislative and headaches, international headaches that you would be dealing with to try to do that would make it very difficult to test out that type of thesis. Whereas actually, it's not very hard to hook up a wallet to an agent and to get that agent to be able to perform actions on your behalf. So it really is the cutting edge of that particular thing. So the composability angle and the interoperability angle for us is really, really important. And it's one of the areas that, it's actually one of the areas that we always loved about crypto broadly. Like when we wrote our first one pager, I was telling Oscar before we came on air, like when we wrote our first one pager, it was actually quite similar in vision to what we're building now. You know, we knew that AI was going to become like personable. And we wanted to work with that. And we also felt that we wanted to see an internet where people had more control. And I think that we're still, you know, we still have a good way to go there. But hopefully we're all pushing in the right direction.
Mike, there's a kind of an adjacent question from our audience here. You kind of brought up sort of the regulatory issues that would normally be around things like a trading bot, for example. But when you have blockchain technology, sort of like just opens it up for anybody to jump in and build some kind of agentic system that interacts with that. What Tarek from LinkedIn is saying is, should AI agents have legal or ethical identities? For example, if an AI commits harm, who's accountable, the developer, the user, or the AI itself? Tariq is actually bringing up AI personhood, I guess. Oscar, by the way, the audience has spoken. They're demanding that you weigh in and say something on at some point in this conversation. So I know that you have some thoughts on all things philosophy. So we're going to invite you to jump in.
I have many thoughts. I have many thoughts, and maybe I will share them at some point.
Oscar is the galaxy brain holding all of this together. Like literally, like if we didn't have Oscar, it would just disintegrate into its component parts. So he is focusing his neural energies on just holding the space for us and making sure the camera points in the right direction and people online get their questions surfaced. But Mike, we'll start with you here. What's your thoughts on this question of identity and culpability, I guess, is what Tariq is bringing up.
It's a good question. I think I'm not sure about legislating the rule. That's the first thing I'll say. So I'm not a lawyer. So I should be careful about what I say on that kind of stuff. But what I can say is I think that it really depends on the situation, right? It really, really does depend on the situation. I think if the LLMs that have been built so far have gone through really rigorous ethical checks and stuff like that a lot of the time. Now, of course, you're able to do all sorts of stuff if you have your own open source LLM. I think that the LLM is essentially this database of knowledge, and it's presenting some of that knowledge to you based on your request. Yeah, I don't know. It's a really tough question because there's so many different ways that it could go dependent on each situation. There could be a way that the user decides to use an LLM that like makes them really culpable for something nasty. Likewise, the obvious answer as well, the people who created the database and the knowledge and the feedback that's coming through, it's their fault. On the flip side, it's like, oh, the person who's distributing that knowledge is the person who's at fault. So Yeah, I think that's you know, at the risk of sounding like I'm dodging the question, which I kind of am. I think it's kind of dependent on whatever situation that you've come. Maybe we're going to legislate on that in the future. Yeah, it's a good one.
Oscar, are you an AI agent? Youngzilla thinks maybe, but
At this point, based on all of the integrations I've done with ChatGPT to like make my life a little bit easier, maybe. Well, I will share one thought, and it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. Dead internet theory, it doesn't matter. You're looking at pixels on a screen. We're looking for engagement and your attention. You don't care if the t-shirt that you bought at Walmart was made by, you know, a serigraphy machine or like artisanally made and being painted. Separate from that, I think that the real killer app when it comes to agentic AI human relations is I want to be able to walk into the holodeck in Star Trek and describe the context that I want things to unfold in the same way that I want to be able to not have to download an app. I want to be able to just tell my phone what I needed to do and have it build the app for me within the confines of that black glass. When I'm thinking about agents and how I want them to integrate them into my life, what I want is to be able to have a conversation with an agent, which will then create its own derivatives that are purpose-built little agent bots that'll go out in the world and do what I need them to do. So look at how quickly prompt engineering died as a, as an area of expertise, where before you had to be very, very explicit, very careful as a trick ChatGPT to do something. Now you have a conversant conversation and it just sort of like scopes out what you want. I just ask it to tell me how to do what I want to do, and then it gives me a framework to do that. So in the end, I see agents as being that front interface that we describe behavior, and then that'll spawn little agents that'll go off into the universe and do their own thing. And it'll probably all end in the end of the universe. But for now, it offers unlimited possibilities.
All right, so let's talk about, and another adjacent issue to this, Brandon Harvey over on YouTube is asking about KYC. So KYC is kind of a mess in blockchain. So KYC, for those who aren't familiar, we're talking about know your customer. So the main place KYC exists right now is when you go to a centralized exchange. So if you go to Coinbase, they make sure that you are who you say you are and that you're not on like government sanctions lists as someone who might be laundering money or attached to a hostile government or something like that. So that's kind of the main lever that governments have right now, is sort of the ingress and egress of money back and forth from the fiat system. Once it's on chain, though, KYC is extremely limited because things tend to operate at a protocol level, and protocols, although there are exceptions, do not generally check for like the KYC status of an individual. That's left to sort of the financial institutions who are subject to things like the regulations that govern money transfer. So it's an interesting question, though. What happens in this new world where a lot of the value extraction as well as the value creation is going to be from all these swarms of agents communicating and ultimately exchanging value with each other?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that we're going to see regulation and legislation to reflect these kind of changes. You know, I think that it's probably something that's going to be important, to be honest with you. It's going to change significantly. It's kind of interesting at the moment because there's been a little, like we've got, yeah, as you said, we've got limited KYC at the moment, centralized exchanges, but you've no KYC to set up a wallet, right? You can just flip up as many wallets. People can flip up thousands of wallets. But it's the onboarding and offboarding of money that requires KYC normally. And
that's sort of the point, right? It's like in an agentic world where agents are now transacting a lot of value exchange, is the status quo enough? You're saying you expect maybe more regulation. I think probably more regulation is somewhat inevitable, because anytime governments don't have control over something, it's natural for government to try to fill that vacuum by establishing
Render unto Caesar.
Right. But, so I think one theory might be, well, like the ingress
clarity
funds do that.
I think what's useful for people is clarity, like clear rules about how these kind of things should work. So, as a creator, I want that clarity as well. So will KYC be necessary for it? I want an answer to that question as well. Of course, I can share my opinion. We can all share our opinions, but really what we're looking for is the legislative branch of governments and of international. We want people to clear up these things, and that's actually helpful, by the way. A lot of people see, like, especially in the kind of like libertarianism, when people see a lot of like the idea of like making a rule as like this terrible thing. That's not necessarily the case. I think, like, I remember speaking to a very interesting tokenomic designer a while back who spoke about how, I think it was around the Wall Street crash, that actually regulation was one of the things that really helped drive the kind of what came after that, and actually created a boom on Wall Street. People actually really wanted, just like, here, set me the limitations. I find this as a creator a lot, right? Like, if I know the limitations, I can build a way better shit than I don't,
Mm-hmm.
I found that as a game designer, found that when I worked in film. It's like, set the limitations, and then we can make amazing, innovative stuff. And sometimes in crypto, you just have to accept that those limitations aren't there, right? And everyone kind of pushes in all these different directions. That's the kind of crypto way. But I think that more clarity is good. I think these kind of questions are good questions. Not sure if I'm the person to legislate on that, So that's why I need to be careful about what I answer about those kind of things. But yeah, they're good questions.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of aligned with the CEO of Coinbase's take, which is, for years he said, let's have regulation. Let's at least know what the rules are that we're supposed to play by, and then we'll play by them. And for years, the SEC over here in the United States has been like, no, we'll keep you guessing, and we'll just file lawsuits against you to keep you scared. Doesn't.
Well, that's just. Yeah, exactly. That stifles innovation, And what happened in the States over the last 4 years stifled innovation inside of crypto dramatically, and there was like an outpouring of innovation to almost everywhere in the world, which I think has probably changed very significantly over the last year. So yeah, I remain very optimistic about the future of crypto. I think we will find that clarity. I think that we will constantly work with some degree of blurred vision, so to speak, because that's the kind of nature of working at the aspect of this kind of cutting edge of technology and almost sociology as well.
Yeah, I think it can be okay to have a common understanding of what the rules are, as long as those rules and regulations don't become so onerous that only large monopolistic entities are in practical terms able to support all of the infrastructure necessary to even comply with regulation, because then that becomes very anti-innovation. And
well, that's the bummer that's happening inside of the EU. So, I mean, the states have had their own difficulties, but in the EU, it's become so like nanny state-ish about what they're trying to do. They've really tried to enforce legislation to try to provide that clarity, but it's major overreach, which is stifling innovation. And it means that a lot of really smart folks from around Europe are not setting up their AI businesses over here, because it's a very concerning future for the EU when it comes to this. So,
so we were talking about it in the context of things like KYC and financial regulations for blockchain, but you're rightly, I think, moving it to an even broader set of regulation, which is regulation coming to artificial intelligence specifically. sounds like you're concerned about it specifically in the EU, but is there regulation that you've been exposed to that you've been concerned about, or that you're concerned about coming?
Yeah, no, there's existing legislation, lack of clarity about that legislation. There's a GDPR stuff. When you're in Europe, you have to click all sorts of things to agree to see a website often over privacy concerns. And those privacy, the way that legislation's been built has very far-reaching consequences for people who are trying to build AI. As a result, you might know, so when, for example, a new feature comes out in OpenAI or Gemini or like DeepMind or any of these folks, when they release new cool technology, they almost never release it in the EU first. There's normally quite a cooling off period in order to be able to bring it over to the EU, which is fucking terrible for big builders with AI. But you want to be able to access the cutting edge always. We've got relationships with some of these folks, so we're able to kind of get early access and stuff like that. But most people don't have those relationships. And you want to work at the cutting edge of technology, you got to be at the cutting edge of technology. You got to have it at that moment. There's no point getting some amazing agentic technology 6 months later. We work in AI, it's a totally different landscape then. So, yeah.
And the most innovative companies are just going to move to the locations where they can be allowed to innovate too. So
precisely.
These countries want to have a piece of this future, then they need to work with companies, right? Not just tell them what not to do. We're getting towards the end of our hour, Mike. I want to kind of give you the final word in the conversation here. So what's your vision for Youmio and where we take it next? And what should people know? Where can they go learn more? What's their big takeaway here on Youmio and the things you care about today?
Cool. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on. And it's been a really fun chat, diving into these totally different aspects of AI. And I really enjoy the free flowing nature of discussions like this and diving into some unknowns as well sometimes. Listen, I mean, we're kind of right now, we're head down, we're building, we're very focused on bringing our launchpad to the world, whereby anyone can go on and use advanced AI and create really cool characters that are powerful. We want people ultimately to access this groundbreaking technology through the prism of easy to use and fun user interface, like personable characters. So if that's something that people are interested in, come over, say hi to us. You can find us at Youmio_AI. And we've got some really cool things that are upcoming. We're getting closer and closer to be able to take this into an open test. So we're going to have some news on that soon. I know there's probably some folks in our community who are looking at this now who are like saying like when Launchpad or when token or all that kind of stuff. And I assure you, it's the Launchpad certainly is going to be coming sooner than later. And we've also got some really kind of interesting ecosystem announcements upcoming as well. Things have been going really well, and I think the broader crypto market's going well as well. What about you, John? How's everything going with you?
Things are going really well. They're very busy. I'm really focused on rolling out our nodes, rolling out our TGE. It's all coming over the next several months. So that's why we've got a lot of people here tuning in. We've got over 1,400 live viewers at this moment at the end of the talk. So people tuned in to learn about this subject and probably pick up the code, but they stuck around. We kept growing during the course of it. So they weren't just airdrop hunters showing up for a code and then piecing out on it. They're here to really be in the community. So we really love that. Our community is amazing at Beamable. We channel you guys to new games. You've caused people to get like 100,000 wish lists sometimes on Steam, which is just insane. Like, wow. Yes, any game developer, if you could get 100,000 wish lists on Steam, you just minted gold for yourself. So we really thank our community for jumping on those opportunities that we've presented. But yeah, we're working on the token and the token launch and all that stuff. The easiest way is to just tune into Beamable Network. The the X page or mine, J Radoff, and follow those and you'll keep learning. Tomorrow, I'm at Permissionless in New York City. So if any of you are there, we've got almost 1,500 now. So if you're here at Permissionless, meet me in person. We can talk about all of the above. But thanks, Mike, for taking part of this. It's been a super fun conversation. I feel like we could just talk for hours and hours and hours, but sadly, our hour is come to an end, and we're going to have to say goodbye for now. And thank you, all of you, for tuning in. Super grateful for all of you for being here. Your time is so valuable, and you decided to be here with us. So that's really fun and grateful for it. If you're watching this in replay, go ahead and join live next time. Ask your questions and participate just as we did in this particular conversation. Thanks, everybody. Mike, thank you too.
Thanks so much. Nice one.
Thanks, everyone.